was lame. Good evening. I would like to call to order the Budget Committee for the City of Keizer for fiscal year 23-24 and ask our city recorder to please call roll.
Kathy Clark.
Here.
Sarita Cross.
Here.
Gerald Gravline.
Here.
Robert Hessman. Kyle Duran.
Here.
Dan Kohler.
Here.
Susan London. Here. Melissa Martin.
Here.
Marlene Parsons.
Here.
Laura Reed.
Here.
Francisco Salvador.
Here.
Hirsch Sangster.
Here.
Shani Starr.
Here.
And Jonathan Thompson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first order of business tonight is the election of the Budget Committee Chair, who is going to be a citizen member, and the Vice Chair, who is going to be a counselor. And I would like to move that we appoint Marlene Parsons as the chair for this year.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Of course, if you do, then you're going to have the job.
Exactly.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, signify by saying no, because you want the job. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Chair, I'll turn to you for the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so now we need a vice chair. I
Madam
nominate,
Chair, I would like to nominate Councilor Kohler as the Vice Chair.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second to nominate Councilor Kohler as vice chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right,
It works better over there.
let's get going. So my next is volunteer appreciation. Corey, could you please come forward? Thank you.
I've never done this before, so bear with me.
Just pretend, it's okay.
Okay. It looks like I have a proclamation to read. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Can you get a little closer to the mic, please?
I do my very best. This chair is slippery.
Push the mic. There you go. Thank you.
How about that? Is
That's
that better?
better, thank you.
Okay. The proclamation says, whereas the foundation of the City of Keizer is our motto, pride, spirit, and volunteerism, that express both a vision and a statement of how we live and work together. And whereas many residents of this community contribute to the well-being of fellow residents in the Mid-Willamette Valley region by giving generously of their time, resources, and energy. And whereas many volunteers assist the City of Keizer in performing a multitude of duties, creating and sustaining valuable services, and making government by the people a reality. The members of this city council, committees, boards, commissions, and task force are all community volunteers, and whereas Keizer volunteers faithfully show up to help time after time, year after year, to take care of neighbors and community whenever there is a need, and whereas the City of Keizer values every one of our many Keizer volunteers and wishes to extend our deepest appreciation to all. Now, therefore, says I, Kathy Clark, but she's wonderfully sitting up there, the mayor of the City of Keizer, together with the City Council, assemble in a regular session to therefore proclaim the month April, which was last month, 2023, as Volunteer Recognition Month. And ask that people of Keizer to express their thanks to join in with the many volunteers to continue to help and serve in the community. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city, Keizer, to be affixed of the document this third day of April. And I'm sure you wonderfully did that on this third day of April. But these are not cookies, because you had little Lois for dinner this afternoon, but these look like wonderful tokens of appreciation. So do I need to walk around? Okay, I will walk around, and everybody with the blue tag gets it? All right.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Oh, they're little gold coins. This is worth money.
Tim's going to collect these afterwards.
So this is a paid position.
It is, yeah, I guess so. Only on budget night.
Do we have to record that with the Secretary of State's office?
SEI.
This is over
Thanks,
$50.
Corey. Nice.
The gold
Thank you,
doubloons.
Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
We'll put them in the bike fund, right?
How many bike helmets is this?
Oh, God, that could be a lot of bike helmets.
I said I don't get any.
Thursday, I'm getting 12, and that's it. Well,
It's probably for Robert. We better save it for Robert.
thank you guys for
He would be mad if I ate his gold
supply
coins.
up a little bit.
You have a bunch right now.
Not a bunch, but you know, a supply. I think I'm gonna ask.
You're rock stars. Appreciate you all.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Keizer
Corey.
Chamber and Corey, and thank you volunteers also. I appreciate that.
May the farce be with you.
Right.
Okay, and now we move on to approval of the budget calendar. Please turn to page 16. And I will retain a motion for approval of the budget calendar.
I move we approve the budget calendar.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the budget calendar. All in favor said aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, budget calendar is approved. That was page 16.
Mine says 18.
Oh, are you online or are you?
No,
18.
Oh, sorry. It said 16 on this thing. Sorry. 18. Okay,
yeah, apparently it is 16 online.
yeah, all right. Next up is the city manager budget message. Mr. Adam Brown, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, Madam Mayor, and members of the Budget Committee. Thank you for coming together for another year's budget. We appreciate your time and dedication to the city of Keizer and its residents. This 2023-2024 budget is approximately $64 million, an increase of $800,000 from last year. The general fund portion of that budget is approximately $16.5 million, which means the rest of those are special revenue, capital, or enterprise funds. This budget keeps a 12.1% fund balance in the general fund, which is important for rainy day stability and cash flow. Thinking about the council goals and what we are currently implementing, technology clearly rose to the top as a budget theme. With this budget, we're making Keizer into a 21st century organization on many digital fronts. This will help us manage more effectively with the limited staff that we have. To discuss the revenue drivers, as you know, we are constrained by Oregon law with property tax growth. So even with hyperinflation all around us, we are capped. Our growth of our property tax, which is our largest single general fund revenue, real market value now is 83% more than the assessed value. The main revenues to mention in this budget are going to be the police fee, the water, and sewer rates. On the expense drivers, there's a few more to highlight. As many of you know, we had all of the positions staffed for the first time in many, many years at 102 employees, and we had a small celebration in the employee room to celebrate that. This budget adds one parks maintenance employee as we shift from updating our equipment to maintaining the equipment that's been updated and the progress that's been made over the past years. An exciting addition to the parks this year is the coming from the parks fee is the addition of the pickleball courts at Keizer Rapids Park. This is the fastest growing sport in the U.S., and we expect that to be very, very popular and well received by the community. Compensation is always difficult when you have union and non-union employees and contracts that are settled and contracts that are in negotiation. This budget proposes a 3% COLA for non-union employees, while one union will be getting a 3.5%. The other is in negotiations. So once all those have been settled, we may need to consider the outcome of the collective bargaining and the non-union employee compensation. But for this budget, it is 3% right now. And healthcare is also a significant budget driver, but I hate to say this, but we're fortunate to only see 5% increase because many plans are seeing close to the 10% double-digit numbers in healthcare inflation. Also, much like the baby boomer generation bubble, we have this 8.8 billion ARPA bubble coming through the city budget. And so we'll see that as it gets spent down on the projects that we have, we'll see it ripple through the budget. Much of it wasn't spent last year, so it's carried forward. And again, that'll be somewhat of a bubble in our budget over these next 3 years. And then lastly, I'd like to talk about PERS. We have an unfunded actuarial accrued liability of $18 million. That comes from all of our Tier 1 and Tier 2 employee obligations. The OPSORP employees, which are the most recent tier of the state pension fund, we are just paying the normal costs because we have no unaccrued liability against those employees. So, but if we were able to pay that down, we would have over $1 million more in funds to provide city services. And so while this budget does not identify funds to pay into a site account, I do want to plant that seed, the potential of creating a site account in your mind for us to be able to sustain more services. And then lastly, I want to thank Assistant City Manager Tim Wood for putting this budget together and all the department heads for going through this together as a team before it was submitted to the Budget Committee. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Wood and stand with him for any questions as the night progresses.
Okay, thank you. Oops.
I'm sorry, actually, go back to the chair.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, City Manager Adam. And I skipped over the minutes, I'm really sorry. I need approval of the FY 22-23 Budget Committee minutes. I hope all of you had a chance to look at those in your book. And I would like a motion, please, to approve those minutes.
I move we approve the fiscal year 22-23 Budget Committee meeting notes.
You second, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the 22-23 minutes from last year. All those in favor say.
Point of clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
So these are minutes, not notes.
Minutes, yes, correct.
Okay, so it was in the motion that they were notes.
Sorry. And that's page,
Well, they were the extra pages that were handed us tonight.
Yes.
But they were emailed to us earlier.
yes. Okay. I'm sorry, that motion is to approve the minutes, not the notes, from budget year 22-23. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on, sorry. And now we're going to move on to public testimony. Tracy, do we have anybody signed up?
There was not anybody. Oh, except for Cory.
Madam Chair, how long do we have for questions on this testimony, people that testify? Can we ask questions like for a half an hour? Or?
No. We're going to limit. Nice try though, Jonathan. We're going to limit this as quickly as possible, please. We'll do our questions. We'll do the testimony and questions. And if it goes too long, I may stop. Okay, just know that. Okay, so we have Corey from the Keizer Chamber.
Yeah, my name's
ahead.
Corey Filardo, and I'm the Executive Director at the Keizer Chamber of Commerce. And we put in an application for TOT dollars for the city's budget. And I just wanted to kind of share what the ask was for. Of course, the regular ask for the information center that we run for the city, keeping the pamphlets and the magazines and information for where citizens and visitors that come to Keizer can utilize and grab and go. And then, of course, we also send packets out to visitors and folks that may be moving to Keizer. So we use those dollars for mailing, and also we've done some rebranding, and we will be using some of that money to get new signage for the chamber and starting new projects so that we can reach more businesses and more citizens in Keizer, and, you know, just going along and doing the same work that the chamber does, and growing businesses in Keizer and making sure that we're reaching so many more businesses is my goal for the chamber, but making sure that we're bringing the city and the vision of the city along with us. And with rebranding, of course, there's some cost and re-signing and getting that brand out. So that's kind of what we'll be using the TOT dollars for with this ask. So that's what I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Corey. So if everyone looks at their handouts that are on their dais there, please, you'll look under the Keizer Chamber of Commerce. It's probably like halfway through your handout there. You'll see what they have put down, what she is requesting. And I will entertain any questions at this time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Lardo, for the work that you and your team have done at Team. 2 incredible staff and a whole team of volunteers at the chamber. Can you talk a little bit about the recovery of membership as we've come out of COVID and the efforts that you and everybody has done to engage with the chamber and the business community and to expand?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have really focused on our greeters program. We've grown that. When I first started at the chamber, which was almost 3.5 years ago, there was 12 business owners or representatives coming on a regular basis to greeters, and now we're about 60 business owners or representatives coming on a weekly basis. We meet at the rec every Tuesday. We've grown that program to one after hours meeting, which we meet on the third Thursday, so that businesses that cannot get away during the working hours can come on an after hours basis and network and meet business owners and come together and make sure that they're also included to share their vision and get to know other business owners. And we're just really focusing on making sure that people can get in touch with like-minded individuals. We're able to expand the services that we've provided, and we've also launched a new program, new in my eyes and vision, but it's not new to the chamber. We've relaunched our ambassador program so that we're able to partner a supporter of the chamber with new business members, executive members, and mission members so that we can walk along with them in the chamber so they don't get lost in the shuffle. So these TOT dollars will also help support that program so that we can have follow-up with our members so they don't join the chamber and go, well, what's gonna happen now? Well, now you have somebody that's gonna show you and deliver on your membership and make sure that we can fulfill what we say we do.
Yes, go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Follow-up. Your leadership was instrumental in the establishment of the Business Recovery Center, the BRC. Would you share that with people who are watching?
Sure. I would also say that Jonathan Thompson had a huge hand in that as well. So kudos to him for walking alongside me with that. There was many phone calls made to him, so from me saying, I need you to explain that. So good job to him too. So we were able to partner with Wilsonville Chamber, Chehalem Valley, who am I forgetting?
St. Paul.
St. Paul, Newburgh, some other chambers that were in Senator Kim Thatcher's district, and she gave us her ARPA funds. And we all worked on this program that would help build back business. And we were able to distribute some funding. I think it was about $3.3 million between the districts, and we were able to break it up by basically the cities. And I lost a really great employee in this development of this coalition or Oregon Business Recovery Center. However, with her moving to this program, we were able to like rock the socks off of it, and get this program started and get businesses some money and make sure that they were able to survive. A lot of these businesses held on through the last 3 years, but it was like, if we don't get this money, we don't know what's gonna happen. So, you know, we all worked really hard. We all tried to make these requirements really attainable for businesses so that it wasn't gonna be super difficult for them to get the money. And Fatima is our outreach coordinator through the Business Recovery Center, and she has worked tirelessly to reach all the businesses in Keizer, not just our members, but businesses who needed the support, Latino-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, any business that needed the help could attain these funds as long as they could prove that they qualified for it. The last time I looked at the spreadsheet, there were, I think, 26 businesses that had received their funding. And of that, only 11 of them were chamber members. So it's been really great to use that as a base of outreach for reaching new businesses. Maybe those businesses haven't heard of the chamber. So it's been really helpful to make sure we're meeting new business owners.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Corey. Any other questions for Corey? Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do I have anyone else who would like to speak on public testimony? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go on to the next agenda item. Go to page 93. This is going to be the Administrative Services Fund, and I will call on yes, Tim.
Before you go to 93, if you could turn back to page 4, I would appreciate it.
I'm sorry, what?
Page 4.
4?
We'll go ahead and start the deliberations at that point.
Thank you. Yes, very good.
While you're turning to page 4, I just wanted to say thank you. I know 2 nights in a row of a 3-hour meeting is a lot to ask, especially this time of year with everything going on. So I do appreciate everyone's time and commitment in being here. Also, I want to thank everyone. This is really a group effort. This budget really couldn't be put together. I could not do this project by myself. It does take all of the work of the executive leadership team, all of your folks' time, also my fellow city team members. Everyone has a little bit of piece in this, so I'm appreciative of that. And also our friends at K23 who are here tonight with us televising it. So I just want to give a big thank you to everyone as we get going. Page 4, this is a page that I don't take lightly. This is our Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. This is one of the ways that we as a city try to reflect the transparency, accountability to the residents of Keizer. This is an award that's not given out to every city. It requires a cut above, a higher standard than what is acceptable by Oregon budget law. So I appreciate this. This is the 9th year in a row that we've received this. And it is my intent that as long as I'm here, we will continue to receive this award because it does mean a lot to me, and I think it means a lot to the community just to have that accountability and transparency. With that, as we get going, I want to talk about a few more pages before we actually get to the budget deliberations.
That deserves applause.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. This was started by my predecessor, and I think it was the right move at the right time to start moving forward with this. And
Yes.
it does hold us to a higher standard, and I appreciate that. If you would join me on page 13. As you're getting there, Oregon has a lot of strict laws. The budget process is highly regulated and controlled in state statute. One of the purposes of that regulation is to encourage community engagement. We're required to have citizen residents on the committee. So this isn't just a city council process. This is more of a community process. So again, I'm appreciative of all of the residents of Keizer who've been on the committee this year and also in previous years. The purpose of this budgeting is a little bit different. If you think about a corporation, oftentimes they're short-sighted, near term. They're looking at current profits, how they can maximize current profits. We're a little bit different than that. Our emphasis is on how we can maintain services into the future. So we're not necessarily looking to cut a lot of corners because we got to make sure that we can continue to deliver water and police services for the foreseeable future. This is also a little bit different than maybe your personal budget. For us, I know I have short-term goals, but I also have long-term goals like retirement after 21 more budgets. So keep that in mind. So with the statutes and the rules that we have to follow, part of it is to make sure that we're accounting for the revenues if there's restrictions to those revenues separately from everything else. In the city's instance, we have our water fund. The water funds that come in from the residents of Keizer, we can't use those funds to pay for police officers. We can't use those to pay for streets. So we can't very easily take money from one fund and move it to another, especially when there's a lot of legal restrictions associated with those. So that's why you're seeing so many different budgets throughout this process. It's not that we want to make it as confusing as possible. It's just that we're required to keep things separate for accountability reasons. So with that, if you turn to page 15, what we're doing tonight is the city is coming to the budget committee and we're presenting the manager recommended budget. The process goes, you folks will have an opportunity to flip through it, deliberate on it, make amendments if you so choose. Once you're done with it, you'll approve the manager recommended. Then we'll take that budget to the city council at the first city council meeting in June. They'll again hold another public testimony time where residents will have an opportunity to talk about the budget if they so choose. And then they'll have an opportunity again to deliberate on it, and then the city council will do the final adoption of the budget. So the pieces that we're doing tonight is you're going to receive the proposed budget. We've already received some public testimony. You'll have the opportunity to discuss and deliberate on the budget. You also have the opportunity to request any additional information. If something doesn't make sense tonight, you can talk to me or you can talk to any of the department heads and we can try to scrounge up any information you may need. You're also going to recommend the proposed tax rate, and please go with the recommended one, please. Otherwise it'll get really ugly. And then you also have the opportunity to approve the proposed budget and changes if there are any. So that's what we're doing. We can move to the next page, page 16. So after you folks are done doing your magic with the budget and it gets to the city council, they do have an opportunity to make any changes. Those changes have to be no greater than $5,000 or 10% of that budget. So there are some restrictions. If the city council gets wild and crazy and wants to make some major changes, we'd have to do an additional budget hearing process and bring that back again so the residents of Keizer have an opportunity to talk about it. So we're building in a lot of checkpoints to the budgeting process. On page 17, the way that we do our budgeting here, the city's funds are budgeted by either the organizational unit, and that would be your administrative services fund or the general fund. And there you'll see one main budget with a bunch of sub budgets underneath that. So in the administrative services, you'll see city manager, city recorder, city attorney. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you're making one opinion on all of those combined. So you have the opportunity, you can either approve them as you go. You can say the city manager, yeah, we want to lock down the testimony on that. Or you can just wait till the end of the entire administrative services fund and say, let's take a vote on that piece. So you have that opportunity. The other way that we budget is by program and activity. That would be similar to the water fund. So when you look at the water fund, the only thing in the water fund is the water fund. There's nothing else in there. Same with the street fund, sewer fund, stormwater. So that would be more of a program and activity kind of budget. So those are the two types of budgets that we have. And I can give you a heads up as far as when we might need approvals. Moving on to page 67. We're going to start getting to the meat of potatoes here. It's going to get exciting. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the big trends that you're going to see throughout all of the budgets. Given that the majority of the city's budget is payroll related, you're going to see a lot of trends that are consistent through all the different budgets. As Adam had indicated before, we did do a 3% cost of living increase for non-represented employees and a 3.5% increase for those represented by the local 737. We are in negotiations with the police union. As a placeholder, we've included a 3% cost of living consistent with the non-represented. When you actually look at the budgets, though, you're going to say, holy crikeys, some of these are 4.5% to 6%. What's going on? Middle of the year, last year, we did a 1.5% increase in response to the inflation. So when you actually look at it, we're comparing our budget to budget. We didn't go back and adjust the budget last year for that 1.5% increase. So you're going to see a 4.5 kind of as the baseline. And that's really the 3% this year and the 1.5 from last year as you're comparing budget to budget. So don't get too caught off guard with that. There's also a couple of areas where we are at full staffing now. We added a lot of bodies over the last year. So you're going to see the annualized impact of someone. So last year in one of my departments, we had someone start in the middle of the year. You're only going to see half a year of costs last year. This year, you'll see a full year of costs. So that's the annualized impact of having those folks around the entire year. That's the big explanation on salary and wages. If we start looking at payroll taxes, there's a thing called Paid Leave Oregon. Since the city is only paying into Medicare, we don't pay into Social Security. We only have a 1.45% payroll tax. That's a pretty darn small amount. When you add on 0.6% on top of that, you see a huge percentage increase. So the dollars are small, but the percentage increases are looking really crazy. So as you look at the budget, the payroll taxes are going to be looking crazy. It's all Paid Leave Oregon. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. The other area that we are looking at significant increases is retirement. PERS is hitting us again this year. This is the biannual rate increase. And as we talked about during the long-range planning committee, we're basically getting a couple black eyes with this. Looking out into the future, the rate increases are going to be slowing down. They have to be. We can't get much higher. So I think that is going to calm down in the next couple of years, so we'll get a little bit of a relief. And as Adam was talking about earlier, there are some opportunities for us to look at reducing those rates if we do some side accounts and some things like that. So just a matter of finding the money. Also, as Adam indicated, insurance. You are going to see about a 5% increase across the board. There are going to be a few budgets where it's going to be significantly higher. And again, that's the annualized impact of having an employee the full year as opposed to only half a year. So that's the excitement with payroll. And again, that's the majority of the budget. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the budget.
Nice try, Tim.
If we do that.
All right, just kidding. At this point, we can go ahead and move it to tab 6, page 92, and we can start the deliberations. So the Administrative Services Fund, this is the catch-all for a lot of the overhead. In this budget, we have the city manager, city attorney's office, city recorder, human resources, finance, facilities, and public works administration. Overall, you can see about a 10% increase, almost 11% increase in personnel services. Again, that's a lot of the things you've already talked about. It's the Paid Leave Oregon, it's the increase in insurance, it's primarily the PERS increases, and then the cost of living and also the annualized cost of having some employees on board. We'll get into the specific funds, but that's kind of the highlight. We really kept the materials and services line at bay as much as we possibly could. We are seeing inflation in a lot of the costs that we're dealing with, so paper costs are going up. We're probably going to see some postage costs increasing, a lot of those kind of things, but we're trying to hold back as much as we possibly can. In the capital outlay, the big items that you're going to see is that we really need to replace the pergolas, both outside the police department and outside of the city employee entrance. Both of those have some manufacturing issues that we need to start working on. We were planning on doing it this year, but we just couldn't find a contractor that had the availability to help us out with that. So that's going to be the highlight of the capital outlay. With that, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. This is one of the areas that we can either go each of the department by department if you so choose and approve it that way, or you can wait till the end and approve it as an entire fund, the Administrative Services Fund.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Anyone have any suggestions? You want to start item by item, or do you want to do what Mr. Wood suggested? I personally believe that we should just start on page 95 and continue to go.
Okay.
Anybody have a problem with that? No? Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you, Mr.
As
Wood.
we move to the city manager budget on page 95, I am thankful that we've got Adam on board. You're going to see, as far as the personnel services cost, a 1.8% increases. This is basically truing up. We had a lot of estimates last year because we were uncertain as to the cost. So now that those are trued up, it's only been going to be a 1.8% increase from the prior year budget. Also, last year we had a lot of costs associated with recruitment. Those are not recurring into the future. So we're actually seeing this budget go down a little bit, which is good. I like that. With that, is there any questions on the city manager budget?
Any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Wood.
If not, I'll move on to the city attorney, and for this one, I'll turn it over to the city attorney, Shannon Johnson.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Tim. Madam Chair and members of the Budget Committee, the city attorney is responsible for, as a charter officer, responsible for being the chief legal officer. You can see the budget there is similar to last year. There's been a couple minor increases there, but I would be happy to answer any questions about that.
Any questions? No, we're good. Oh, wait, excuse me. Laura.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the law library maintenance, and that was considerably higher. Was there anything more in particular? Did that go digital or?
So Tim can probably help you on the percentages. I would make sure you do not look at percentages.
No, I was looking at the
dollar amount. So if you look back 2 years, that's usually every other year. So it's similar to the last actual, which is 2021-22, which was 925. So every other year we have new statutes.
Okay, thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the city recorder's department. I can go ahead and turn this over to Tracy Davis, the city recorder.
Thank you, Tim. Budget Committee Chair and members, the City Recorder's Department consists of the City Recorder and the Deputy City Recorder. The budget remains consistent except for the increase in the personnel costs, as Tim explained earlier. I can answer any questions if you have any.
On page 99, does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Human Resources.
For this, I'll turn it over to the Human Resource Director, Michelle DePina.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and Budget Committee, the Human Resources Department budget is essentially flat with the exception of the increases due to full staffing, which Tim mentioned earlier, and an increase on line 24 medical testing. That is specific to our bloodborne pathogens program, which we run through an external provider, and they raised their rates this last year. We have a 2-year contract with them, and each time they raise the rates, I go out and check to see if there are any other vendors, and unfortunately, there are not. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions? Thank you, Jonathan.
Did we finally get you your software program?
Unfortunately not. We ran an RFP. We had a few vendors apply and ultimately decided not to select any of them, so we are putting another RFP out.
All right. I feel like we have this conversation every year at this time.
Yes, we do.
But yeah, okay. Thank you very much for the update.
It is my goal to have it in place before I leave here.
Thank you, Michelle. I hope so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So if we don't get it, she's saying?
Yeah, we don't get it, you're staying, right? Okay, Counselor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The cost of recruiting new employees, is that reflected in here somewhere?
No.
Okay, where do we find that?
It depends on what are you looking for?
Well, we have some employees that we're replacing because of retirement, and some of those are, we're hiring an outside firm to do some of those things. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, where's that reflected?
Sure. We're reflecting those costs in the ARPA fund. As typical in the past, if you've been with us for a while, we have typically, when we have a retirement or someone terminates, we leave that position open for an extended period of time as we absorb a lot of the costs of that recruitment process and also the payout of the vacation type of accruals. We do have an allocation in the ARPA fund to not do that historic process, so we have an opportunity to get people in sooner rather than later, especially for some of our critical positions. We're anticipating an actual overlap of employees. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Mr. Wood, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Clark.
So I think to the other part of the question, where is it accounted for the recruitment for the successor, we can never replace Mr. Johnson. That's on page 97. It was actually in the city attorney's budget on line 21. I believe, is that just all legal services and we have that much going that's where that is? Is that in that line or is it someplace else?
It is potentially there. Depending on how the transition goes, if there is a delay, we got some dollars there that we can rely on outside counsel if need be.
Okay, so that's what that increase is for?
Correct,
The 20,000 is a contingency in case?
Once we get farther down the road with the RFP process for an executive recruiter, we'll be able to lock in those dollar amounts and come back with a budget adjustment at that time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any other questions? Thank you.
Moving on to the finance department, page 103. This would be an example where we're seeing the annualized impact of an additional employee. Middle of last year, we brought the finance non-departmental staff from 3 to 4 employees back to our pre-COVID levels. So we're back again at even Steven staffing. With that, we also are seeing a significant increase in audit fees. Unfortunately, our contract with our previous auditors had expired, and we had to go out for an RFP process. And because of that, all of a sudden, we're now paying market rates. When you lock in a contract for an extended period, you do have the opportunity, especially during a time of high inflation, to keep that contract fairly low and the dollars fairly low. Because we did go out, we are now kind of at the market rate for audit services. So that's the main driver of what's going on in the finance non-departmental. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be free to entertain those.
Any questions? Madam Mayor.
On page 103, line 10, and then over on page 104, it says line 11, has to do with adding back the administrative specialist. Should that footnote be referenced to line 10?
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you folks see any of those kind of things, let me know. This is a big document, and I guarantee I didn't get everything.
Well, it's the only one I found so far, and that was with my granddaughter's help when she dropped her crayons. So there we go.
Thank you, Mr.
If
Wood.
your granddaughter needs a job editing, please let me know.
Sounds good.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Moving on to page 105. This is Finance Information Systems. This is our IT department. This supports 2 employees. This department also supports some outside agencies. We have agreements with the City of Allensville, Turner, Sublimity, and also the League of Oregon Cities. So we provide some IT resources. It's been a great relationship that we've had with those fellow cities. Not Sublimity, Staten. I'm losing my mind tonight. So with this, as far as our IT strategy, we're looking at moving our phone system to the cloud and also our email system to the cloud. That's one area where we have a little bit of cybersecurity risk. Once we do that, I think our IT department will sleep a little better at night. With respect to software, we aren't really adding anything to this budget, although we are looking at adding the human resource information system. You'll see that in the ARPA fund. But as far as software goes, we're kind of maintaining even with what we have right now. We also are going to be continuing on with our desktop, laptop replacement project. We have about 160 computers that we support. So just kind of doing the math, you got to replace about 10 to 15 of those every so often, just to keep things up to speed. With that, if there's, I guess the other change also is we're breaking out some costs a little bit differently as we move into the future. We used to use the software line as kind of a catch-all for a lot of supplies or contractual services. Going into the future, we're going to break those out and have a separate line so we can track the supplies separately and then also any contractual services that we do. We do have a handful of folks that we partner with to provide us things like high-end networking help if we need it, a little bit of help desk if we have questions on different software packages that we're not familiar with. So with that, if there's any additional questions.
Any questions? Yes, Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you just bring me up to speed on the contracting services with our IT? Who do we have agreements with, and what percentage of the revenue does that bring, of the revenue line item does that bring in?
We have contracts with the League of Oregon Cities, cities of Turner, Staten, and Almsville. And you'll actually see the revenues coming in, let's see. You'll see the revenues on page 113 when we get to that page. So they bring in about 30,000 roughly.
I'm sorry, that was what?
They bring in about $30,000 to the city.
A year?
Correct.
Okay.
Follow up? Yes.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And is that bill doing all 102, supporting 102 staff with IT plus doing the contracts?
We actually have 2 IT people.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Wood, is there some talk about expanding that service to some other vendors, other cities?
If we did, we'd have to add additional staffing. Right now, we're kind of at the max of what we can do with what we have. We are open to the idea. City of Woodburn does a similar thing. They have a handful of cities that they support as well.
Follow up, and at what point, how many more cities would we have to add to justify another FTE?
We're right there.
Right
if we were looking at one more, I don't think we could do it. I guess we're pretty blessed that we have a very competent 2 IT staff. Typically, when a city comes to us, they're kind of in turmoil, and it takes us about 6 to 9 months just to get everything straightened out. Once we get them to a maintenance period, it really doesn't take a lot of effort on our side.
So if we had 3 cities that came to us, then we would need to add an employee in order to do that?
We would definitely need to.
And would that be cost effective?
It would pay for itself, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Wood, I'm not finding that on page 111 or 113 or any page. So can you just walk me to where that's at, please?
It's actually line 7, interest. It really shouldn't be labeled interest.
That would be why I couldn't find
that would
it.
be,
Thank
I'm
you.
hiding it.
Thank you. Did you get your answer? Very good, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Wood?
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
Okay, oh, excuse me.
Line 7, interest, there's no projected or proposed revenue. On 113?
But there's typically should be about 30,000 there.
So we need to add that in?
We could add that in if we.
And then that, what does that do to all of the numbers here? Does
It
it,
wouldn't impact anything other than, it would impact the ending fund balance, and that would be it.
it doesn't increase the total resources line by 30,000?
It would do that, yes.
Okay. And then what does it do to the total requirements? Because are we netting then the positive net income of 30,000?
We would be positive.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tim, I know with the whole telework thing, and the reason do we have employees that have desktops and laptops? The reason I ask is I know the state's making a push right now to get rid of desktops and use docking stations instead, and supposedly saving quite a bit of money. So I was wondering if there was an opportunity for us to save any money there.
There potentially is. I'm trying to think. We don't have very many people that have desktops and laptops.
Okay, that's
Maybe
great.
a handful throughout the entire city.
Yeah, so it's not talking about a massive amount of money then that we would
No,
save?
no.
Okay, thank you.
So a follow-up question to that, do we have anyone that works totally from home, or is everybody back in the office?
Everyone is back in the office, at least most of their schedule.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Mr. Wood?
Okay. Moving on to page 107, the utility billing. This is the centralized administrative billing function for all of our utilities. We take care of the water, sewer, stormwater billings. We also have police and parks fees that are also included on those billings. For this budget, we're basically seeing the impact of getting our budget numbers to where they should be. We've had some staffing additions over the last staffing changes, a few folks leaving and coming. So that's why you're seeing the percentages look a little bit different here. We're also trying to keep our postage printing costs down. We're looking at some opportunities to possibly do something different than the way we're currently processing. Also contractual services, which primarily is credit card fees. We're also looking to see what we can do possibly to reduce those rates. Although when you look at it, we are billing for about $10 million worth of utilities, and our credit card fees are still only about $100,000. So not out of line, but still something to keep our eye on. With that, if there's any additional questions on utility billing.
Okay, I have a question. I'm seeing a common theme on all these that we've done is retirement. Why has that gone up so much on all of these things that we've talked about?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's the biannual rate increase for PERS. That's killing us.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Melissa.
So do those rates go to the PERS administration, or what are those rate increases going toward?
So the way that the retirement is calculated, PERS gives us a percentage. We apply that percentage against the payroll compensation to come up with what we have to contribute to the PERS. It's an actuarial calculation, and it consists of two pieces: the employee piece, which is 6%, which is picked up by the city, and then the employer piece, which ranges between 20 and 30%. So for every dollar in compensation we pay, we're paying PERS 20 to 30% of that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
In these individual budgets we're looking at, usually it refers to FTE, but I don't see how many FTE each one of those budget areas are supplying when it comes to like administrative support. Didn't we have that in the past? Isn't that something that we normally see?
We do have a page back in the front that
Okay,
shows
that
the
shows that?
breakdown of all the different departments. And as Adam had indicated, we're looking at adding one parks person midway through the year, and that will really be the major change that you'll see. So in the utility billing area, we're really looking at 3 full-time employees.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you. We're on to Public Works now, right?
Moving on to Public Works, non-departmental, I'll go ahead and turn that over to Bill Lawyer, the Public Works Director.
Thank you, Tim. Madam Chair, committee members. This budget captures the cost to maintain and operate our public works shop facility, which is located right behind the fire district on Shamar Road. Includes staff that are paid out of multiple funds, like myself, administrative support, and a couple other staff members that are paid from, like, again, multiple funds. Really, the highlight is we plan to resurface and seal coat the back area of our shop to maintain the pavement so that our vehicles can go in and out of the facility without tearing up the blacktop. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I almost hate to ask, but it seemed like there was a really big echo and on this side, and seemed very,
I know, I didn't quite understand everything you said.
yeah. Didn't understand hardly anything.
Echoing.
Okay, am I still echoing from here?
It's echoing.
How about if I just talk really loud? Yeah.
Much better.
Try that one.
Testing 1, 2.
Okay, try that, Bill. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let me try this again. Is that better?
Maybe turn the other one off.
It's off. Okay. This fund is the fund that captures the cost to operate and maintain the public works shop facility, which is behind the fire district on Shamar Road. Houses all the public works field staff from all the different divisions. Their workstations, computers are there. It also carries or has the staff that are paid from multiple funds throughout public works, like myself, administrative support, and two of my division directors. Really, the only thing highlights for this fund out of last year is we're planning to reseal and resurface and reseal the back parking lot of our shop area. The pavement's failing, and if we don't fix it pretty soon, it'll be more expensive than it is going to be this year.
Yeah, Mr. Lawyer, I'm still not hearing all of it. Is anyone else having an issue here? We're not. For some reason, you're echoing, and I'm not sure why. So I'm hearing double what you're saying, so I'm not understanding what you're saying because of that. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you.
Because I was hearing some echo from some of you earlier.
And you didn't understand. You can't, I think I need hearing aids at this point. There we go.
Third time is a charm.
Thank you, Mr. Lawyer. Now you know the whole thing. By heart. Okay, let's try this again. Thank you.
How's that? Can we hear?
So far, so good, yes.
Okay. Third time's a charm. The Public Works Administration budget captures the costs associated with operating and maintaining the Public Works facility, which is on Shamar Road behind the fire district. All the Public Works field staff are housed there, have desks there, computers, phones, and all of that. This budget also captures costs associated with employees that are paid in Public Works that are paid from multiple funds, okay? Really, the only difference this year, highlight this year, is we plan to resurface and seal coat the back area of our shop. The pavement is failing in some areas. It needs to be sealed up to maintain the life of that pavement so our vehicles can come and go freely without excessive damage. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was much better. Questions, Madam Mayor?
Nope,
You good?
I was just saying,
Yes, thank you.
way to go.
Yes. Anybody have any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Just a question on the water department. How often do you update the computer system for the water monitoring? I think it's been.
We'll get to that when we get to the water fund.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you, Bill.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Well, let's move on to page 111, Civic Center Facilities. Mr. Wood?
Again, I'll turn this over to Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Tim. Madam Chair and committee members, this budget captures the cost to operate and maintain this facility, the entire facility, community rooms, police department, city hall, everything. Really, the only changes for this year, as was mentioned earlier, we plan to repair the pergolas or trellises and the employee break areas at both the police department and city hall. We have some rotten lumber that needs to be replaced. We're going to put steel in so we don't have a rot problem in the future. We also plan to upgrade all of our parking lot lighting to LED to reduce power consumption. and also plan to clean and seal the block wall around the police department parking lot. We do the main building on a regular basis. We just haven't done that wall for a while, and it's looking pretty haggard, so we plan to do that this year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With the conversion of the parking lot lights to LED, will they be able to be on longer hours for security?
That's
Because it gets
just
really dark.
It's a matter of choice. We can do that. We can extend the time if we need to. That's absolutely doable.
Consider the request made.
Can I have some guidance on what kind of hours we're talking about?
Well, my personal, and then I will leave it to you and the city manager to determine, would be that all hours of dark, keep it on during during the night until dawn for safety and security in this parking lot, because when it's dark, other stuff happens under the cover of dark.
We can look at doing that.
And since we have people that come in the lobby to call the police non-emergency line out there, I think that's very important that we do have that.
Okay.
That's my take on that. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Kohler?
Are some of the lights on all the time and some of them go off at
There are
9
a few
o'clock?
that we leave on all the time, mainly around the building, but the parking lot itself, the
It's
main
dark.
part of the parking lot, they go off at set times.
I think it'd be great to consult with our police department and see what they felt would be the best way to do that security-wise.
Okay.
And thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question, I'm not sure if Mr. Lawyer, Mr. Wood will be able to answer this. So projective for beginning balance, is that 544,000? Is that include the TOT dollars? And how much of that is in TOT dollars? And how much is just revenue coming in for the Civic Center?
Those are not actually the TOT. Those, we'll be discussing that tomorrow night in the community center.
So
fund.
what is included in that? Is that just rollover money?
That is rollover. That basically consists of our Civic Center improvement reserve. Those dollars are set aside for building up a reserve to replace the roof or the HVAC system here at City Hall.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Wood or Mr. Lawyer? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been some talk about not only the grounds in the park and such here, but also doing the grounds around the Heritage Center. Is that something that's in this budget, or is that something we need to talk further about?
It is not included in this budget. The grounds around here, we have one person that maintains this 68,000 square foot building plus all the grounds, and he's plenty busy. But any additional costs not associated with this property proper are not included in here.
Okay, well, we can discuss that further. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Saying none, thank you. Let's move on.
Okay, moving on to page 113, general administration. And this is kind of the catch-all for things that don't necessarily go to a specific department. Here, it's primarily the office supplies, postage, those kind of things, association memberships. The two main association memberships are the League of Oregon Cities and then the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. That makes up about 90% of the association memberships. One of the things that you'll see is a fairly big increase in liability insurance. CIS, our broker, or our insurance company, indicated that we should expect about a 9% increase in our property liability kind of insurance. They're saying this is because if we have a claim, the replacement cost for whatever we're replacing has skyrocketed with the hyperinflation that we're experiencing. So that's really the driver. It's not necessarily reflective of our claim experience. It's more a reflection of the costs in the marketplace right now. So hopefully we can keep that down through limited claims over the next year. Also, as Councilor Starr identified, we are missing the $30,000 for charges for services. Since it is a revenue item, we don't necessarily need to amend the budget. It doesn't necessarily play a part in it. When you folks approve the budget, you'll be approving the expenditure side, and that won't have any impact on the expenditure side. With that, that is the Administrative Services Fund. At this point, you can go ahead and make a motion. If you want to amend it, you can. You can deliberate more.
I make a motion that we approve the Administrative Services Fund.
I'd like to suggest a friendly amendment that we,
Has to be seconded.
oh, sorry.
Second.
Okay.
Now can I?
Yeah, go ahead, friendly
Thank you.
amendment.
I'd like to request or offer a friendly amendment that we recognize the 30,000 in revenue because, and here's my reasoning why. There's nothing reflected in the 2023 budgeted line item. There's nothing in the projected 2022-23 line item and nothing in the proposed. So I feel strongly it should be passed as amended with that 30, with all three of those corrected.
Do you accept friendly amendment?
I do, but we said we didn't have to do that, so that's why I didn't put it in to begin with, but I don't have a problem with that.
What about the second? Who was the second?
Who was the second? Do you accept that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you both accept that?
It makes
Okay.
perfect sense
Okay.
and clarity.
Okay.
Thank you, Hirsch.
So I have a friendly amendment to that motion. Do I have a second to the friendly amendment?
No, it's already been accepted.
Oh, it's already been accepted, okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay? Okay, motion accepted, thank you. Now we'll move on to the Public Works funds. Mr.
That is
Wood.
correct. And at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Lawyer for the street fund.
I'm glad you're still in your spot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Page 116.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. The street fund is funds come wholly, or almost wholly from gas tax dollars, apportioned by the state on a per capita basis. You'll notice in this fiscal year on line 21, miscellaneous revenue of $65,000. That's a bit of an abnormal happening. What that is repayment of a city investment on Dearborn Avenue Northeast that borders the apartments that are being built. The city chose to go ahead and build all of Dearborn while we were doing our bridge project and assess the property when it developed. It's being developed. That's why that line is so high this year. We typically wouldn't see more than a few $1,000s in that line. So that's why I wanted to point that out. Other highlights for this year in the street fund, line 65 includes the city's match for the Verta Lane project. That's improvements, urban improvements, curb gutter sidewalk from Dearborn to just south of Alder. I'll call it south. It's kind of an odd direction toward the Parkway. It does not go all the way to the Parkway. Project's in design right now, and we are obligated to match the grant funding at phases through the project. We've matched our design fee. Next would be acquisition or right-of-way property acquisition, followed by construction. So this next year will be the acquisition piece. It also includes funding for a speed table to be constructed on Cummings Lane. The goal is to have that done this summer while school's closed. That's something council directed to be done. It's been a bit of a challenge to get that designed. We've run into a couple hurdles, but I've got things straightened out with the engineers. They're moving ahead, and we see no reason that shouldn't be complete this summer before school opens next fall. Line 68, signal and signage upgrades includes, again, the city's match to another federally funded project to replace the copper wire that the traffic signals communicate with a fiber optic cable. This project's been planned for many years. The city of Salem is actually doing that project for the city of Keizer, and that line includes our required match for the construction portion of that project, which will be getting started fairly soon. I don't have exact dates yet. Should be minimal impact to traffic on River Road, other than there will be times when the signals are not communicating because they have no cable to communicate with. But I will keep everybody updated when I get dates on that. That line also includes the installation of a rectangular rapid flashing beacon on Shamama Road. I had hoped to have that done this fiscal year. It will be done July 3rd, July 4th, 5th, right in there. So it's captured in next year's budget. That's something that's been planned for some time. We were gonna bid it separately, but it became apparent when we were doing the curb ramp upgrades on Cherry Avenue for paving this summer. In preparation to pave, there was some signal work needed there, and it just made scale of economy, made sense to include it there. So it's in that package and will be done here right after the 1st of July. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do I have any questions? Yes, Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did I miss the unanticipated expense? 200,000, which there was nothing projected. Just curious what that is.
That's another name for contingency. I can't have two contingencies in the same fund, and so I do an unanticipated expense in the capital outlay. It's basically a contingency for capital projects, for cost overruns or things that we unexpected that we don't plan for when we're preparing the budget.
And then I have one more follow-up. Thank you, Madam Chair. Where do the bike helmet donations go?
Bike helmet donations.
Because I don't see anything reflected in the revenue line item for 2022-23, but I believe that I've seen donations come in.
That's on line 18 on page 116.
So what's the bike safety donations on line 4? Under revenue?
That's carryover. That's money that would be carried into the next.
Into the next, so you're going to spend it all this year?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Yes, he is. Okay, any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
It's not a question, but just more of a statement. Being on the Traffic Safety Bikeways Committee, this last year we've had a lot of neighborhood groups coming to us talking about crosswalks, specifically Southeast Keizer at Alder, and then a newer, well, it's really an old one that keeps coming up, a crosswalk on Lock Haven close to Celtic Way. Is that in the planning?
I would say those are in the discussion phase at the Traffic Safety Bikeways Pedestrian Committee, with no formal motion or action taken, recommendation to City Council. If that happens during the next fiscal cycle, there is some flexibility I have within the street fund. The unanticipated expense line item is one. The resurfacing line is another, where there's a fairly sizable amount of money there that if I needed to scale back resurfacing a little bit because something else became a higher priority, we can do that.
Thank you.
And I will follow up with that question, Mr. Royer. So what is the cost of putting, let's say, a said crosswalk across Lock Haven on Celtic Way?
A crosswalk is a couple $1,000, the crosswalk.
And are we talking
the
more
lights,
than a
the
crosswalk?
rapid flashing beacons, if we're talking about those like the one on Shamala Road, that's about $70,000.
Oh, okay, gotcha, thank you.
And I would recommend not painting a crosswalk on Lock Haven if you did not put in rapid flashing beacons.
Right.
Putting white paint on the ground makes pedestrians feel safe, like there's a wall around them.
Right,
And there's
gotcha.
not. It's good. I'm really against just painting a crosswalk.
Right.
If I'm directed, we'll do it, but it's just not a good idea.
No, I got you, I understand. So I heard talk though of, on Windsor Island, you know, they put that new storage unit in, and so with that, they put in an ADA ramp that will go across the street,
That's
but
correct.
there's no crosswalk. Is there an intention to put one there?
No. It is legal to cross a street at any intersection, okay? Whether there's a crosswalk or not.
Okay,
We are required through ADA rules to provide access for wheelchairs at all intersections.
gotcha.
Okay? That's why those ramps went in the way they're arranged at that intersection.
Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Back on Lock Haven and Celtic Way. In fact, is have had input from the principal, and he's, you know, where the baseball cages are, more of a crosswalk there. Because his point was there might be more congestion if you have kids and turning and everything at Celtic Way itself. But there's a possibility to do some partnership here, maybe with the school district.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Awesome, okay, let's move on.
I
Street
think
lighting
that with these funds, we need to adopt them as we go, correct, Tim?
Correct. So with the street fund, we should probably approve that.
Oh, I'm sorry?
With the street fund, we should probably make a motion to
Okay,
approve the
thank
street
you.
fund.
I need a motion for the street to.
I move we approve the street fund budget.
Second. I second.
Okay, it's been moved and
Got my
seconded
helmet. Thank you.
that we approve the street funding. Discussion on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. Okay, we'll move on, please, to the street lighting districts, page 119.
Moving on to page 119, the street lighting district. The city has over 200 different districts, basically little neighborhoods where there's street lights. The city has a program where we help to put in the street lights. We pay for the electricity costs the first year, and then we turn around and assess that area the following year for those costs. This budget provides for a couple of additional street lighting districts in the event we do have new neighborhoods that are starting to get built. Pretty limited in Keizer right now, as all of you know. So there's not a big likelihood that we'll see a lot of new street lighting districts. This is also anticipating a significant increase in electrical costs. PGE, as many of you have seen, are looking at about a 14% rate increase middle of this year. So that is going to have a significant impact on this budget as well as some of our other areas as well. We are also working on building up our contingency. The contingency is in case something goes wrong with any of the streetlights that the city is responsible for. We'll have dollars sitting there, mostly out at Keizer Station area. We have certain areas that we have a little bit more active role in the lighting itself. Other than that, not a heck of a lot of changes. The residents will see a similar assessment this year as they have seen in previous years. So we're not seeing a big increase in anything at this point. With that, is there any additional questions?
Actually, I have one. So I remember a couple years ago when PGE came in and said they wanted to replace all the lights and do LEDs, that it would be cheaper. And now you're saying it's really not. It's going to be a 14% increase upon what we're already paying. Because it's not been cheaper, by the way.
We did see a pretty level decrease, a big decrease one year and fairly level for the following years. So I feel PGE is stuck to what they sold us. So we have seen a decrease. It must have been 4 or 5 years ago that happened, maybe even longer than that.
Okay, because I'm just saying, because I live in a new area development, and our street fee fund has not gone down. It's gone up every year, and now you're saying it's going to go up another 14%, and we have LED lights, right, which is supposed to be more cost effective, and now you're saying it's not. So that's what I'm saying to you is, where is it going to be cheaper? Is it on River Road? Is it different districts, different neighborhoods?
Sure. Well, we saw the cost decrease many years ago. So really, we're just seeing the level. We haven't really raised the assessment cost for several years either. So it should have been fairly flat each year with minimal. I can look up your area and I'll see.
No, it has been pretty flat, but
Yeah,
what I'm
sure.
saying is because it's LEDs, it's still going to go up 14%, even though it's LED, because it has been pretty flat. My neighborhood's only like 7 years old, and so it's been pretty much the same. It's gone up a little
Okay,
bit, but
okay.
you're saying it's going to go up 14% because they're raising their rates 14%, even though PGE came to us a few years ago and said the LED lighting is going to cause it to go down.
Correct.
Okay.
So we saw the initial decrease, and now we're living with
Gotcha.
with a new base.
Okay.
So.
Okay, any other questions? Is that mine? Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
So many times over the years, I've brought up the notion of doing a consolidated street lighting district overlay, since we have these, how many little districts?
Over 200.
Over 200, and we have older neighborhoods that have never gotten street lights.
At all.
Near the high school in particular. So I'm going to raise that again. I know this is a much more complex conversation than that can be had here. But at some point, it would be, I think it would be constructive to have that conversation about what would that look like and take it to the people of Keizer, because that would complete a system that is not under this system getting completed. We have completely not served neighborhoods. We have other neighborhoods that are underserved with lighting density. And then we have the new ones which are all to code. So we have a huge disparity from zero to wow. And so I think I would encourage us at some point to have a more comprehensive conversation about what we have and what we could do.
Sounds
So
like
I'm
a
just
work
putting it on the record.
session.
Sounds like a potential work session. Yes, it does.
Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
Tim, you said there's 200 and some districts. How do the assessments vary, just roughly? How do the assessments vary between those 200 districts? Are they similar? Are some very high and some very low?
Sure. I suppose to go back to the idea of consolidating, it'd be an interesting question to answer. We have some districts that have, say, an apartment complex. Their assessment's $2,000. We have other areas where it's 3 or 4 houses. Their assessment may be $30 for the year. So it is a very wide range. For a residential house, you're probably looking, $80 a year, somewhere in that range on average. So while the idea of consolidating all of them, I would agree, it would save me a lot of work administratively, because we have to go through and do a calculation for each of those districts based off of their electrical use and that kind of a thing. I think it would require a vote by everyone in the district at some point, so that would be the path forward that I would see for that process.
Gotcha. Any other questions?
I just keep bringing it up.
Nope, go ahead.
You said PGE. Does Salem Electric at all have involvement in lighting?
They do. I think
So
about a
it's
third.
2 different companies that we're dealing with.
Correct.
Okay.
About a third of the residents, I think, are covered by Salem Electric.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, seeing none, let's proceed to.
I move that we approve the street lighting district's budget.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the street lighting district. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Perfect, okay, we'll move on.
Moving
Page
on
120.
to page 120, the Transportation Improvement Fund. I'll go ahead and turn that over to Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Tim. Madam Chair and committee members, Transportation Improvement Fund revenues come from transportation systems development charges paid by all new development in Keizer. Multifamily, single-family, commercial, doesn't matter. They all pay into this fund based on the number of trips they generate. The number of trips is a set number that's set or established through an international engineering foundation. We just apply the numbers to the number of trips and the developments pay accordingly. There are once again, no identified improvements in this fund this year. We're waiting for ODOT to decide to widen the southbound on-ramp on I-5. We've been waiting 15 years. We might wait another 15 years. But the funds are available should they come to us and say, now it's time. The funds are there so we can access them to pay our share. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on this one.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Mayor Clark.
And just a comment on that, something that, because I represent Keizer on our Metropolitan Planning Organization that distributes the federal funding for projects that are in our Metropolitan Planning Organization area, which is Salem, Keizer, soon to add Almsville, and includes Turner. What we've been advocating for is the rebuild or the reconstruction of Aurora Donald. Next priority is Brook Lake. So we are holding the funds as per our agreement. This has not reached the point of lobbying for the funding for this project because there have been death traps that have been a higher priority. But when ODOT's ready to go, I am very pleased that our city is ready to execute on that project. But that's partly why this one has not elevated to really lobbying hard for the funding yet. If you
Great, thank
disagree
you.
with me, let me know because I'm on that committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other comments or questions on it? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the transportation improvements budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the transportation improvement budget. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Let's move on. Stormwater.
Mr. Lawyer?
Thanks, Tim. Stormwater fund, as was mentioned earlier, there's no fee increase recommended for this fund this year. This is all, the funds for this, or revenue for this is all generated by user fees, by all buildings in Keizer that have impervious areas. Really, the highlights for next year are on line 61, equipment and capital outlay. That's the stormwater share of a new mini excavator to replace a 2004 model. The rest of the funding is in the water fund. That machine has been well used over its 20 years of life, and it's time to replace it. Also included in this budget on line 62 is design work and permit costs for a wetlands enhancement project on the east side of Claggett Creek, across from Claggett Creek Park. That's the old cow pasture. That project includes a boardwalk that will reach from Shamawa to Dearborn, down through the property, kind of a passive recreation area with enhancements to attract wildlife, encourage more bird life to land in there, like more than they already do in the wintertime. In addition, there's a fake, well, I shouldn't say fake, a man-made berm on the east side of the creek that was been built up over many years. We're gonna pull that back, drag it back onto the ground so the creek can actually get into that field more often through the year, improve water quality for Claggett Creek, and create wildlife habitat. Also included in line 62 is a realignment project of a storm drain on McLeod Lane that will be probably started in June but finished in July. And then also funding for anything else we determine as a priority through our video inspection program, looking at our storm lines. Folks are looking right now at a line from Windsor Island to, I think it's Willow Leaf, runs behind a bunch of houses. We've got some failures in that line. We're trying to figure out, do we fix the failures areas? Do we try and replace it? It's hard to get to because it's in people's backyards, literally. So we're kind of evaluating the best way to attack that. It's going to be expensive no matter what we do. But that's the highlights for that fund, and I can answer questions for you.
Any questions for the stormwater fund?
Just a statement.
Go ahead.
And I've said this every year, your street sweeping in Keizer, using this fund, as a cyclist and others, it's the best. You can tell the difference between Salem and Keizer immediately. So I say this every year. This year it's no different. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice, kudos, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Madam Mayor.
So I'm thrilled to pieces for this Claggett Creek watershed enhancement. I think this is going to be a fabulous ad. And not only for the environment, habitat, and so forth, but also the opportunity for people to enjoy that space and be closer to nature. My question is, will it continue to be managed under this fund and not become part of the Parks Fund? We're not going to try to mix that there, or will there be some overlap?
Haven't fully determined that yet. I think there may be some overlap, but we haven't fully landed on that. We're still finalizing the plans and to see what kind of maintenance and enhancements there will be along the boardwalk. We're planning on doing some educational stops, educational signage. So it just kind of depends on where we land with the final design and where it's maintained from. I don't expect there'll be a lot of ground maintenance. There will be some initially to get the plants to survive and get things going. But in the long term, there shouldn't be a lot of ground maintenance. It'll just mainly be the boardwalk.
And just as a follow-up comment, if I may, this will be the, a solely bike ped connection between Verda and Dearborn. It's not next to a street, it's not a sidewalk. This is, will people be able to roll on it, or will it be just pedestrian only? I mean, they probably will anyway, but.
Should be able to roll on. It's going to be ADA compliant.
Okay.
Access down from Shamawa Road and back up to Dearborn will be ADA compliant. So we'll be able to be rolled on.
Okay.
I'm a little hesitant to encourage bicycles. I know they'll be there. Okay. We all know they will.
Yeah.
But this boardwalk can be about 9 feet wide. Okay. From a walkable surface, total 10 feet with some curbing on each side. So 8.5, 9 feet of usable area. The goal is to not have a handrail. I thought a handrail would diminish the look. And so it's only going to be about 2 feet off the ground. No handrail necessary. Because it's so low to the ground, there's going to be times it's probably going to be underwater. High creek level, things like that, but that's okay. It's going to be designed for that.
And then follow up. So when it is underwater, though, the design will allow for the flow of the water above and below?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Awesome.
And the one, I'll say, downside to this is there's not going to be anywhere to park to get to this. It's going to be a walkable thing because the only parking is going to be at Clyde Creek Park. So
Right.
that's the one downside, I think, to attract more people to use it, but there's just really no way to create any parking for that.
I think, with the connection to the sidewalk system on both the north and south side, it's going to be pretty much a natural. And yeah, if we can discourage people from using it as a bicycle cut through, since I've been almost run down by people on pedestrian spaces like the sidewalks, it would be nice. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other comments or questions on the stormwater? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the stormwater fund budget.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the stormwater fund budget. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, motion passes. And we'll go on to the sewer.
Moving on to page 124, the sewer fund. The city of Keizer is part of a regional sewer system. City of Salem manages that system. They go through a cost of service analysis and then come up with a projected rate of an increase for all of the regional partners. For the city of Keizer, we're looking at about a 6% increase for next year. The primary driver of that is the ongoing capital improvements. It takes quite a bit of materials for a lot of the capital improvements that they're doing. And unfortunately, things like the cost of steel and concrete have gone up fairly steeply. So that's why we're seeing a 6%. They do anticipate after this 2-year period that we're currently in, that we'll see the rate start to drop back down to a more normal 3%-ish range. So this is hopefully a temporary bump in the road as far as the rate increases go. It is going to be rather painful though for all of us because the sewer charges do make up about 2/3 of your bi-monthly city services bill. The only other change, 6% revenue increase and a 6% increase in the amount that we pay out to the city of Salem. So this is a flow-through budget. Money comes in, then this over to Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Tim. Sewer Reserve Fund revenues come from fees paid by properties in Keizer outside of the original sewer district that are in for development. There are very few properties left like that in the city. Probably the main pieces are off Windsor Island Road right now. There's a Filbert Orchard on the east side of Windsor Island Road, north of Lock Haven. That's probably the biggest piece left. This fund will help to build a trunk sewer line in that area of Keizer that will serve that property. That's what the funds are intended for. That's the last one that we have to build. So until we see some development, additional development, driving the need for that sewer line, these funds will just sit there and be available should that development occur. So be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lawyer. Any questions on the sewer reserve fund? Entertain a motion, please.
I move we approve the sewer reserve fund budget.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the sewer reserve fund. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion passed unanimously. And with that, we'll move on to the water, page 127.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Water Fund, as was mentioned earlier, is proposing a 4% rate increase this next fiscal year. That will take effect in January of 2024. That's consistent with the rate model that we've been operating under for the last 20 years. Really not a lot of changes in this budget, highlighted by, as I mentioned earlier, purchasing a new mini excavator. That the balance of those funds are in the water fund, shared with storm fund. Another thing you'll notice, kind of not really hidden, but a nuance within the budget, an increase in the transfer to the water facility fund from this year to next year. Excuse me, basically that puts it back, the transfer back to where it's been historically. We had some additional costs this year that we needed to take care of in the water fund, so we had to reduce the transfer. Plus Thankfully, was ARPA money involved to build some projects, so that gave us the ability to reduce the transfer and not have to put those funds forward. We could catch up on some unexpected expenses, I would say, not the least of which was materials cost increases and having to replace some filter media and a filter plant that was unexpected. That was about a $12,000 unexpected expense. Let's see, that's really the highlights for this fund. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, go ahead.
This is earlier. Is this where you're funding for computer improvements?
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite.
Raise your hand when
Well,
we get.
that's really shown in the water facility fund, but $650,000 of funding for the water facility fund comes from the water fund. So I'll explain that a little more with the next one.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the water fund budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the water fund budget. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously, and we'll move on to the water facility replacement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Water Facility Replacement Fund is the project fund for the water system. Revenues come from, as I just mentioned, transfers from the water fund into the facility fund, as well as systems development fees paid by new connections to the water system based on meter size. Mr. Sangster asked about updating our telemetry system. It's been a number of years since we've done a comprehensive update. We have done pieces of it over the years. When we put this budget together, we'd planned on replacing some radios for the communications. For many, many years, our water system communicated over phone lines. And we were relying on the phone company to provide the services. They were pretty darn good over the history, but we made a decision to be self-reliant and go to radio communications. So we were all on our own. The phone system could go dead, we could still communicate. That's been 15, 18 years ago now. Those radios are getting to the point to need to be replaced. Well, since we put the budget together and that was our proposal, we have found out that there's a pretty major component of our telemetry system. The telemetry system is what controls the water system, okay? They're called programmable logic controllers, or PLCs. We need to replace them. That's the brains and the heart of the telemetry system. And so we're going to just change the work from radios to the PLCs. PLCs are probably going to cost a little bit more, but I think we can fit it in without any problem, without having to change anything within the budget. The other thing that's included in this budget is a new pump at the right site. The well's being drilled right now. We don't know what size pump we're going to need till the well's drilled. We don't know what kind of water we're going to get out of it. So the pump is included in this budget, as well as a new filter plant for that site. We discovered in preparing for the new well that the filter plant there, the tanks have some serious pitting in it and probably going to need to be replaced. Hopefully we won't need it once we get down and get the water, but we needed it with the first well. I have to expect we're going to need it with this one. I hope I'm surprised and we don't, but the funding is in here for that. That's pretty much the highlights and the lowlights in some respects.
Thank you, Mr. Lawyer. I have any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Hussman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lawyer, what are some of the other parameters around the project of the radio communication updating for the telemetry system? How long will it take the team to get up to speed? How much time do you need to work out kinks, things of that nature?
Radio's really not long-term, doesn't take a long time. It's more equipment acquisition than anything. So we'll get through the PLCs first, refine those costs, because those are much more vital to the system than the radios. The radios are kind of a preemptive replacement, okay? They work. If they fail, we have a problem because they're not really replaceable. Although I don't like to gamble with the water system, the PLCs are a much higher priority than the radios, so we're going to go with that. If we have a radio failure, we'll address it as necessary.
perhaps we should have a show of hands of who would be willing to gamble with the water system here, but minor digression on that point. What are any potential pitfalls you see in making sure that the telemetry system is connected to the water system and that those systems communicate to each other as they're supposed to? i.e., is there any kind of lag in time or expense that may come out of that?
Not really. Whenever you update something like a PLC on a telemetry system, there's always the risk that things aren't going to talk to each other correctly. Historically, we've had very good luck with that. Our water system has multiple backup systems, redundant backups, to the point I could go over and unplug the telemetry system, hit it with a hammer, completely take it down. The water system's still going to provide water. Going to be a little hard on the equipment. It's not designed to do that long term, but it will still provide water to the community. So with the fail-safes in place, really don't have a lot of concerns implementing these changes.
Okay, but if you need a hammer, we can always put one in the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
That it? Okay.
Yes, Madam Chair,
All
sorry.
right, that's all right. Any other
good.
questions? Awesome. I entertain a motion, please.
I move we approve the water facility replacement fund budget.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the water facility replacement fund. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay, passes unanimously. We'll move on to Park Services, page 131.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Revenue for the Park Services Fund is a combination of general fund contribution and Parks Services fees. There's not a recommendation or proposal to increase the Park Services fee next fiscal year. We're comfortable with the funds we have to maintain another year and into the future. As was mentioned earlier, this budget does include a new employee for the park system, although they won't start until January. After discussion with Robert and his folks, we decided kind of silly to try and hire somebody during the busy season, which is like right now, or July 1st, obviously, when this budget would take effect. Because they're so busy with trying to accomplish things and maintain the park system, they don't have time to train anybody. So we're gonna hire somebody in January, use the slow months, the winter months to get them trained up and ready to hit the ground full speed in next spring, ready to go. Other highlights of this budget, proposing to purchase a side flail mower attachment for one of our tractors that will enable us to more efficiently and I'll just say do a better job of maintaining the trails primarily at Keizer Rapids Park. We have the equipment that can do it now, but it's kind of hard on it. This side flail will just make a huge improvement. We'll have a better swath through there, and again, more efficiently and just do a better job. And in addition, as was mentioned earlier, our plan is to construct some pickleball courts at Keizer Rapids Park and additional parking for that facility. We're working on finalizing designs and everything so we can get bids out, assuming the budget gets adopted as soon as we can. I don't know that we'll have those done by the end of summer, but certainly next spring they'll be in play and ready to go.
Okay, I have a question. Mr. Lawyer, is there gonna be a cap on the Park Services fee? Is there a cap?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've had some people contact me about the park over by Claggett Creek School, that all the equipment was taken out of that.
Ben Miller Family Park, yes, sir.
Yes.
That is taken out because it's being replaced. The new equipment should arrive this week and will be installed very shortly after it arrives. That includes rubberized surfacing, ADA compliant access to the playground, and some minor parking improvements along, I think it's called Beebe Street. I can never remember if it's Beebe or Harcourt right there as it comes around the corner and kind of goes east and west. Just
Whatever
a short
it is.
distance. Yeah, whatever it is, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the Park Services fee.
I move we approve this park services fee budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Park Services Fund budget. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay, passes unanimously. And with that, we'll move on to page 134, Park Improvements. Last item of the evening, by the way.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Park Improvement Fund revenues for this fund come from systems development charges paid by residential development in Keizer, both single-family, multifamily. Commercial businesses, commercial development does not pay parks SDCs in Keizer. Really, the highlights for next year are the Parks Improvement Fund's share of the costs of the pickleball courts and parking in Keizer Rapids. That is defined through the Parks Systems Development Charge Methodology. That's a mouthful to say. And limited at 13.6% of the overall improvement cost. And so those numbers are included in this budget to build those pickleball courts and the parking in Keizer Rapids.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Counselor Starr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lawyer, Budget Note 5 says it's based on 20 new single-family homes during the year, and I think earlier in the budget I saw 15 homes. Does that do anything to the calculations?
Not really. We have to take a guess, if you will. We usually try to be consistent between all the funds, the SDC funds. I guess we missed it by 5 this year between the two, but I don't think that's a major impact because I expect we are going to see much more revenue than that come in on both of these funds with some multifamily projects that are coming that are going to pay some of these fees that haven't yet. I just don't know when that's going to happen.
But it doesn't affect the I mean, it's within the same budget. So I just found it's on page 120, Transportation Improvement Fund, SDCs. Assume 15 new single-family homes. I would assume that that affects the calculations within that fund. And then we're using a different number in the Park Improvement Fund, which would affect those calculations.
That's correct, it does. But I will tell you that I fully expect the end of the year revenue will be higher than 20 family homes in both of the funds because we've got commercial development and multifamily development coming online that we don't know exactly when they're going to pay the fees. And so while it has some effect, the bottom line is it really doesn't affect a whole lot. Both of these funds have large balances in them with very, very few expenditures identified. So it really doesn't, it matters, but it doesn't matter, if that makes any sense.
No, sorry.
Basically what'll happen, and if you look at.
To me, it either does or it doesn't when it comes to a budget.
Let's use page 134, for instance. Line 5, budgeted fiscal year 22-23, $40,000. That was 20 new homes last year. We actually took in $367,000, okay? You look at the year before, actual was 182,000, okay? When I project these based on what I think the number of homes that are going to get built, because we never know when apartments are going to come online, when they're going to pay the fees. And so I'm pretty confident that the end of the year in both the Parks Improvement Fund and the Transportation Improvement Fund, the revenue generated will be much higher than what's projected. And again, because these funds don't have a lot of expenditures out of them, it just adds to the ending fund balance. That's the part that doesn't really matter, if that makes any sense. If these were funds that had a lot more active expenditures on an annual basis and a lot more dollars involved in expenditures, then it becomes much more critical that those numbers are tracked a lot closer.
Mr. Wood.
Madam Chair, on page 134, we can go ahead and adjust the footnote to 15 houses. And it won't have necessarily an impact on the dollars.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't
get that.
On page 134, on footnote 5, we can go ahead and change that from 20 new single homes to 15 new single homes to match the part of the Transportation Improvement Fund.
Okay.
And the calculations are still the same?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, any other questions on this? Yes, Mr. Duran.
If there's so much more money coming in because of new construction, could the park fee go down?
Not really, because these funds are limited The park improvement funds are limited for use based on the systems development charge methodology report. And at best, they can contribute 13.6% of a project cost. Now, Ben Miller Park, here's an example. Ben Miller Park, play structure replacement. There are $0 available in the park improvement fund for that project. That's completely parks fee. The reason for that is when that methodology report was done and following state laws, growth-driven development. That's what the key term was. And in the Ben Miller Park area, there was no growth, no projected growth, and therefore no SDCs can be used for improvements at that park.
So it has to be area specific? Is that what?
Park specific.
Park, okay.
More than area. It's actually, there's a report and a methodology established for each park in Keizer. And not most, but the higher percentage of them have no available STCs because there's no growth around them, growth opportunity around them. Willamette Manor Park is another example. That's developed out, so.
Go ahead, Mr. Singster.
It's, I think, related question. In our neighborhood association area, there are no parks. We'd love to have a park. If we had development, apartments, whatever being built, could we push for a park if there was land?
I would say you can push for a park even if the apartments are not being built.
Okay.
I mean, the key was the last part of your statement, if there's land. That's the biggest key. There's just not a lot of land available in Keizer, and unfortunately, a lot of Keizer.
Could some of these funds be used for something like that?
They can be used to acquire property, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ben.
And I have a question on line 22, unanticipated expenses. It doubled. And I guess I just want to know why. It went from 750,000 to 1.5.
$327,000 of that is more revenue than anticipated in fiscal year 23.
Okay.
That's a bunch of apartments coming online, honestly. That's where that money came from.
Okay, Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Where is the expenditure SDC portion of the improvements to Keizer Rapid for the turf fields?
It's in the unanticipated expenses line.
Yep.
Okay.
The reason, let me explain why it's there. Because we have not solidified and finalized the project costs yet enough to establish what the SDC portion is. And I didn't want to mislead anybody and put a false or an untried number in there. And so I just put it in the unanticipated balance, knowing there's more than enough in that line item to cover that part.
Okay, any other questions to the Parks Improvement Fund? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Park Improvement Fund budget as amended.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Park Improvement Fund. Any more discussion?
Point of order.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
So the comment was as amended. This is a change in a footnote. We're not amending the dollar amounts. So that is the question. Is this truly as amended, or is this a scrivener's error?
This is just a scrivener's error.
Okay, so we're not, so the original motion is about as amended, friendly amendment to remove the as amended.
Agreed.
Agreed? Second?
Agreed. Agreed.
Oh, agreed. Thank you. Agreed. Okay, so as amended, let's,
Nope, not as amended.
oh, sorry, not as amended.
Unamended, the way you said it.
The way I said it, yes, thank you. So, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, and it passes, not as amended. Thank you. That concludes our agenda for tonight.
Bill has one more.
And Bill has something else.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank the committee for your questions this year. I really appreciate it. Some years when I sit here and present these budgets, I walk away feeling like I did something wrong because there weren't any questions. So I do appreciate your questions very much. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Lawyer. I'm sure we'll have more. Thank you. Okay, guess what, guys? It's 7:56. And I'm going to adjourn for the night, and we'll see you tomorrow at 6 PM and to go over the general fund. Have your questions ready.
Thank you very much.
With that, we're adjourned.